Welcome to another edition of Geopolitics and Empire. Quick reminder, support the transmission. The best way you can do that is by becoming a paid subscriber on the Geopolitics and Empire Substack, $9.11 a month, or I think it's about $91.10 annually. You get a slight discount there. We do every week or two group Zoom chats with subscribers only to shoot the breeze on current events. I do a weekly write-up of the news with my own commentary, and I bring back past podcast guests sometimes to do a live Q&A with supporters only. You can donate through the website, purchase a consult if you want to chat with me, and do check out all of my affiliates and sponsors that also help keep me going, and do leave a podcast review if you haven't already on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen or watch Geopolitics and Empire. And joining us for the first time on Geopolitics and Empire is Chris Rossini of the Ron Paul Institute. He's also the Friday co-host of the Ron Paul Liberty Report. Welcome to Geopolitics and Empire, Chris.
Hervoye, great to be with you. Thank you.
So, I love your the work that you do. I follow you guys, Daniel, Ron Paul over at the Ron Paul Institute and Liberty Report. I was a past sponsor of the conferences. You've been on my past TNT radio show, and now it's your first time on the podcast. And maybe just to start, to just get the Ron Paul stuff out of the way, we hung out in 2023 at both the Ron Paul conferences in Texas and Washington, D.C. For me, it was such an amazing time to meet so many awesome people. I even got to go to Daniel McAdams' house being a sponsor, but I couldn't make it last year. But could you tell us about the work for people who are not aware or who don't follow it as closely, the work of the Liberty Report, the Institute, if you guys have any ideas for the conferences this year and any other projects people should be aware of?
Yes, well, the Ron Paul Institute was created to continue Ron Paul's work, even though he's out of Congress. And we're focused on foreign policy primarily and civil liberties. And then Dr. Paul also does the Ron Paul Liberty Report Monday through Friday. We're on Rumble, we're on all the big podcasts, X. So you could listen to Dr. Paul every day if you'd like. And I'm his co-host on Fridays. We have usually 2 to 3 conferences per year. We're planning on it again this year. And we, every year now, we have student seminars, which we pick a growing number of students where they have their own basic conference, their own day. So, we're growing and just continuing Dr. Paul's work.
I'm going to see if I could make it to at least one of the conferences this year. And I think when I went in 2023, I met one of the former student seminar attendees. I can't recall his name now. But when I met him at the event, he had become elected to local office, which was amazing. It's kind of like a testament to the work that you guys are doing. And maybe just for fun, let's call it an icebreaker. What are your thoughts on, I think it's Soros and Skeletor, Hillary Clinton, getting the Medal of Freedom award?
Yeah, Medal of Freedom. It's amazing. They give awards to themselves, kind of like the actors, the celebrities. They pat themselves on the back, and the worse they do, the better they are. So you fail upwards in government, and the worse that you are for society, the better you are treated. It's, that's par for the course. We've been doing this for so long now that it's common, but it is, once you see Soros and Hillary, these are like the crown jewels, but it's a joke, and they have nothing to do with freedom, of course. But this is what they do.
It's total bizarro world. That's a reference from Superman in the Marvel Comics universe, bizarro world where everything is upside down, or I think Stranger Things, which has the upside down. And I did want to get your thoughts on the Trump administration. There's a lot of things going on here. The incoming Trump administration. You've been commenting on this prolifically on your X account, and it seems like, I don't know. I mean, showing signs of capitulation. We're seeing not good things happening. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, well, first, considering the options, I am happy he won. The bar was so low. I mean, I don't know if it could have been lower. So that's not that great of an accomplishment. But and there are some things. I think Trump is a mixed bag. He's going to do some things that are good. So he can't toss everything out. But he's also going to do things that are not good at all. And that's the part that he's going to need criticism. And that's, as an American citizen, that's our duty, to criticize things that are not good, that are not what he, pro-American, even though it'll be wrapped up in that wrapping. So that's where we are. It's better that it's him and not Kamala, because it would all be bad. There would be very, very little to praise, but there will be things to praise about Trump, and he'll deserve it. And I'll be, one of the first to give it to him. But yeah, so it's a mixed bag, and we'll just have to take it day by day.
Thoughts on Mike Johnson being reelected by a hair?
Terrible. But again, this is the problem. The MAGA influencers and the loyalists to Trump, and that's whatever he wants, they will push for, and it'll be you're either with us, against us, that kind of garbage. And Mike Johnson is a terrible House candidate. He couldn't have proved it more. The guy gave $95 billion to Israel and Ukraine primarily, but Israel too. Very big Israel guy. So Israel, I'm sure, is very happy that Mike Johnson is the Speaker of our House. And so in that respect, and there's other stuff that he's done with the passing bills and the FISA decision that he was the tiebreaker for. The guy's just, and for the MAGA people to pawn him off as America first, give me a break, and Thomas Massie took a lot of flack, as always, when he does the right thing. He's usually the only one, like Dr. Paul, that does the right thing. And, he had to take all the slings and arrows for being called a traitor and this and that, because he does the right thing. He's not going to put somebody that does not put our country first. Clearly, he's not going to vote for him. So this is part of the challenge. There's the right is a lot like the left. They have a hive mind, and you're either one of us or we're going to ostracize you. So there's no principles. It's just you do what you're told. And a lot of people don't want to think like that. They're like, no, Republicans are not like. They're exactly like that. This is how they were during the Bush administration. They gave us the Patriot Act. They gave us the TSA. They gave us all the surveillance. They gave us the war in Iraq that had nothing to do with 9/11, that took 20 years and trillions of dollars. This is the side that gave all of this to us. And they will do it again if, they're called on to do it again. And I hope they're not. But if they do, then we have to speak out against it and be actually for America first, like Representative Thomas Massie.
Yeah, I wish we had more Thomas Massies. You can count these folks on on one hand. And I just wanted to go further. I was going to bring this up as well. Your some of your comments on X. You just mentioned the right has a hive mind. The empire is a two-headed snake. This snake has influencers on both sides ready to foam at the mouth for another war. Or whatever, globalist policy that Trump might implement, digital ID because of migration or whatever. And just a further thought on that, because I think listeners to Geopolitics and Empire, to Liberty Report, I see yourself, Daniel, criticizing left and right. And that's what we should be doing. And just further thoughts on there's Con Inc., they call it, Conservative Inc., rhinos, and there's people that jump on this MAGA train for the grift, right? And these influencers. And just any further thought on some of these fake fake people.
Yeah. Well, listen, there are people that do not have principles. They think about winning and getting what they want. And if they get what they want, then they win. And that's it. And there's no, right or wrong. Whatever in the moment is desired is what's right. And I know this sounds like a leftist thing, because it is, but it's not just left. The right is just as bad. It's a two-headed snake. We didn't get into this position by a tug of war. It was both parties. They're part of all the wars, both of them. And what happens is the party that's in power, their supporters are silent. They will not criticize whatever the war is. If Obama goes and bombs 8 nations, his supporters are not going to say a word about it. But if George W. Bush bombs all these nations, they will take to the streets. So they're right in that respect, but they're wrong to be silent when Obama and Biden do it. And the Republicans are the same. They hate Ukraine. They not another penny, not another penny. Well, when it comes to Israel, they zip their lips and will support it, if they're supposed to. So this is the two-headed snake that we're up against. And that's why the globalists, to use that word, or the elites, if you want to call them, I hate that word because, elite is supposed to be a good thing. But, they play both sides. So what's the difference? We know that the banks play both sides. So politicians will say whatever they need to say on both sides to get the same result. And that's how we got into 36 trillion in debt. It's how we got into all these endless wars. And, what they have done is they didn't put, but however it came about, there's two sides. And the only side that all that they care about is victory in the moment. And not, well, we shouldn't be doing this. Even though we're going to win, we're going to be in another war. This is not right. That doesn't cross their minds. You're an enemy if you're against this next war, this next debt increase, all of it. And that's why this two-party system is perfect, because both sides cheer on and support welfare and warfare, and nobody opposes it. When their party's in power, they'll oppose it when they're out of power, But and that's the predicament that we're in.
And another predicament that we're in, one of my biggest obsessions studying history and international relations, of course, is globalism. You've been commenting on that recently, and this North American Union idea for maybe the better part of 2 decades. I've been saying the European Union is the prototype for world government, for technocratic, anti-democratic, supranational system, and it's being exported to all regions. I've been commenting on how the former Mexican president AMLO has explicitly been calling to copy EU and integrate North America. Mm-hmm. El Salvador's president came out in 2022 in an interview and said the same for Central America. And then you've had, of course, many Latin American leftist globalist leaders, Rafael Correa, saying the same thing. We want a common South American currency, South American Union based on the EU. And now it's strange that Trump is pushing this. And, even Alex Jones made this documentary Endgame, which I very much enjoyed, speaking against the North American Union. And we're seeing so many people do 180s. I mean, we just spoke to that. And now Jones is like, let's integrate Canada and USA. And I'm like, what is going on? I just searched quickly today. Washington Post published a piece in 2016 saying Brexit and the long wistful dream of a North American Union. Here's a quick excerpt. It says, quote, there have been far-fetched proposals to integrate North America for decades. One noteworthy example came from Technocracy, a social movement that peaked in the 1930s. It goes on to cite, Robert Pastor was one advocate of closer integration. Why can't we be not only partners in the long term, but a North American Union? I believe I conducted the last living interview with Robert Pastor. So I met him. He visited our campus here where I used to teach in Mexico. He promoting this idea. And then back in December, I think 2013, I Skyped him into my university classroom here in Mexico. And he passed, unfortunately, of cancer, I think January 2014. And you've been commenting, Kevin O'Leary. Of course, he came out. He's pushing this. You said, sounds like a step towards the globalist desired world government. We need to go the other way, decentralize. And another tweet, you cite Kissinger and NAFTA being part of the new world order. You continue on. Kevin Leary again he's making multiple appearances, pushing this, and again, you're saying not globalism and steps toward a one world government. And just Newsweek just published a piece on Donald Trump's plan for new U.S. empires. So just I think this is kind of a big deal. What are your thoughts with all of this?
This is a huge deal and a huge disappointment if this is the way we're going, because it is the opposite of America first. Canada is not America. Panama is not America. Greenland is not America. And all of a sudden, America is going to gobble up these other nations, supposedly, and of course the influencers. Oh, this is strength. This is look at how. No. This is the globalist idea is for ultimately someday a one world government, period. And the way to get there is to have these big economic blocs first, combine, ultimately combining into one. And then all your nations are gone, all your borders, all the other stuff. There's one universal republic. Now, to some people, this might be like, this is insane. Yeah, well, it happens over lifetimes. It has been going on for a long time. You mentioned the EU, and this is how the Soviets were. And so this is the idea, and the idea never dies. It always gets resurrected, even after the Soviet Union collapsed. The idea of global government has not gone, because that's the utopia that a lot of these, again, I'm going to use the word elites, want. So they need something to do. So this is what they do all day long. And for America to now become one with Canada, we're not Canadians and they're not Americans. But this is the thing. This is creating another big bloc. And they'll sell it as, oh, free trade and this and that. Life is more than just transactions with people. We are not just economic inputs. And that's what this would make us. You don't have your culture anymore. We see, these last 10 years, how they've just torn cultures apart, because that's a hindrance. You're just going to be an economic input, and you're a part of this big, giant economic zone that contains all of North America and South America, whatever. And that's how it's going to be. And you'll lose your culture, your traditions, your language, all of it can just go up in smoke so that they can combine. And that's why I'm against this. I don't care what minerals are in Greenland. I don't care about the Panama Canal. You trade, with people. Don't be a bully. And every other country wants to make money. They will trade with you if you don't bully them around. America has no conception of that. That all they know is to just take a hammer and start smashing things. So, yes, this would be a bad thing. Ultimately, it'll be sold as, oh, we're going to be so much more prosperous because, look, we have Canada now and the Panama Canal and Greenland. But it's a one more step of, now you have this giant bloc, and now you have the European Union, and they'll just ultimately, oh, you know what? We should all just get along and be together. And then you end up with what we saw with COVID. You have one goofball named Fauci that makes rules for the entire world, and everybody suffers because there is no local anymore. There's just this one elite that will dictate to the entire world. And this is their dream, and we just have to, and they may get it someday, but they can't get it without people speaking out against it. And that's what I do with my life.
Yeah. And I've been thinking to what we said earlier, how I feel like our leaders, they're tasked with, they're almost like used car salesmen of selling the same thing, but just repackaging it for different audiences. So if you had Obama, Clinton, Obama, Biden were more open with this globalist integration idea. And I feel like with Trump, they've changed the marketing where, Newsweek right now, they're saying Trump's policies are a throwback to the 19th century, which saw the U.S. expand westwards across North America and even occupy Cuba and the Philippines. Trump was seeking an older form of power projection that harks back to the bloody days of Teddy Roosevelt. And it's like MAGA 2.0 is kind of like, it's like they're selling this idea of Monroe Doctrine 2.0, like let's make America imperial again. It's kind of like pulling on those strings of patriotism to sell North American Union. I mean, did you see that same thing?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that was one thing that I worried about with Trump. He has the ability to whip up patriotic fervor. And that could be a good thing or that could be a bad thing. If he whips it up to go to war with Iran, that's a bad thing. But if he whips it up to, get the income tax down to 0 or 15% flat, then that's a good thing. So, and Kamala Harris couldn't whip up patriotic fervor ever, no matter how hard she tried. So that's why, even though we needed Trump to win, there's a downside, because he's able to generate patriotic fervor, and that could be used for good and for bad. And that's what I worry about. This would be bad, But if you get enough people whipped up into thinking, rah, rah, America, we're going to go, we're going to be one with Canada now. I mean, that's not America first. Do you understand what America is? Does everybody need a map to see this is it? It's not anybody else. But once they get into power, they just lose their sense of reality, their sense of America first. And, depending on who's in power, they'll just expand in that direction, like you said. So it doesn't matter who it is. They'll just do the same thing under a different banner.
And before moving on from North America today, Justin Trudeau in tears has resigned, and in some ways it's a relief, but I feel like they've postulated the preeminent Davos man Mark Carney as someone down the line to put in, but it's still wonderful seeing Trudeau in tears. Do you have any thought on that?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's wonderful to see that Kamala Harris is not going to be president, but then you have Donald Trump, which is a wild card, or a mixed bag. So yeah, it's great. I mean, Trudeau. How bad could you get? He's out, but what are you going to have, a central banker now? I mean, it's a push. So yeah. It's more of the same. They're very good at switching out people and really not changing things other than in appearances.
New boss, same as the old boss. And you mentioned the patriotic fervor. Just your thoughts on foreign policy then in the wars. Ukraine, the Middle East. I think Zelensky was just on Lex Friedman. I bookmarked that for viewing, but I know it's going to be painful to go through 3 hours of Zelensky on Lex Friedman, but there's talk of Trump coming in and peace being made between with Putin and Zelensky. But my fear, I said this a while back, that I thought Trump would come in and the deep state would sort of like him, because who's going to go fight Iran and China? If it was Kamala, who's going to go die for Kamala and Biden? Out there in the Middle East and in the Indo-Pacific. But if Trump comes back, we have these recent events, these quote terror events, and that's sort of beginning to gin up, right? This narrative of, oh, it's Syrian terrorists or it's Iranian terrorists or whoever, and they're sneaking in through the border, these cells, and now. Rah, rah, rah. I think you'll get a lot of more people buying into signing up to going for, fight Iran or China. So your thoughts on where we are with the World War III? Do you see possibilities for respite, maybe some peace in Ukraine, or, Eldridge Colby, the son of the former CIA director, he's now in Trump's administration, and he's talking about pivoting to Asia. So it's now, they started the mess in Europe, and they're like, okay, we're going to leave that, and now let's go to Taiwan. Your thoughts? Yeah,
I worry about World War III very much, because they have three different angles to go for it. There's the Taiwan, which I think is the least at this moment. I could be wrong. I don't know. Ukraine, I believe Russia has won that, so it's time to pivot away from there. And the one I worry about, and many people worry about, is Iran, because that's we know the influence that the Israel lobby has on our government. Trump, once said that Israel's the greatest country in the world. He actually said something like that. And he keeps telling us over and over how great he is for Israel. So this is, that's why this war on Iran is not for us, just like the others have not been for us. Iraq, Syria, Libya, this wasn't for us. What do we get out of this besides debt, dead, and just a ruination of our own country? We profited nothing off of these things. And Iran is not Iraq. Iran is a power who has two nuclear powers in China and Russia behind them. So it's just a pivot away from Ukraine to the Middle East. And that is a great fear of mine. And like you said, the excuses could be made. You have this president who has the American flag that he could wrap around any story. And that is very worrying, because that would... probably be the end. We're 36 trillion in debt. We're falling apart at the seams. A world war would be it. And that's and who wants this? Certainly not me as an American citizen. I really wanted America first, to actually fix things in this country. But once people are in power, they lose sight of that, and I am concerned about that.
And you mentioned the economy. Your thoughts there, sort of on the state of the economy, debt, inflation, the dollar. It just seems all to be going downhill, and we're getting just right at the cliff's edge. And for many years, people have been talking about this, that it's the end of the road. It's the end of the road, but they keep kicking the can down the road. But it seems like people have posited that the Dems seem sort of giddy now that Trump is in power, because maybe the plan all along was to pull the rug out from the economy on Trump's watch. How do you sort of see where we are, and what it will look like if the crash commences?
Yeah, that is a concern. He could be like a Herbert Hoover, and then once he's done 4 years, we get an FDR. Or it doesn't happen. The economy is so complex. There are so many variables, and things can last a lot longer than you think they can last. So it's very hard to say, will we have a serious depression-like correction? It's going to happen at some point, but will it be in the next 4 years? I think it's very hard to know. In any case, whether or not we get something serious like that, the economy is terrible. So irregardless of the stock market and people making money in crypto, the actual living your normal life, my grocery bill is terrible. My other bills they're still going up. So this has been built in, and we're still having the effects of it. And I'm going to say Trump's money printing during COVID, that's $6 trillion or $2 trillion, whatever it was, fueled this inflation. He didn't take the blame. Biden did, but the money came then. And that was another thing that Thomas Massie was against, that they pounded him for being, so heartless for not wanting this COVID relief, which gave us this inflation. So it's too hard to say when this is going to happen. If we get into problems, then the desire for war may escalate even more. This is what presidents do. When the economy's in the tank, you generate the fervor for war somewhere. And, it has to be said that both Woodrow Wilson, FDR, they promised, we are not going into these world wars. We are not sending your kids. Both of them said it. Well, Trump has also said, I'm not getting us into World War III, and I hope to God that he sticks to that. The precedents before of Wilson and FDR, they lied. They got us into both of those wars. So is Trump, going to be the president to get us into World War III, or however we get into it? I hope to God not, because that would be terrible for everybody for a very long time. And for those of us that are middle-aged, we don't want to see the next 20 years flushed away. So I hope it can be avoided.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Bush said, yes, George, that he wasn't going to go to war, and then turns around and a global war on terror, the endless war. You mentioned Bitcoin. Just quick thought there. I'm a skeptic on Bitcoin and crypto. I'm just noticing a bit of a cult mentality. These things have uses, but it's just I can't shake the tulip mania feel. And then there's this talk about Tether. There's the people there resigned recently, and I just feel like something can burst this year in that space, which could then lead to a further sort of collapse. Do you have any thought on Bitcoin?
I like Bitcoin, but I don't like that a lot of bad guys are all into this crypto, and this is it. So their motivations are not the same as my motivation, which is to perhaps someday use a sound currency. They may use and see crypto as an off-ramp to what they have done with the fiat money, and formulate things to their advantage to keep their scams going, but going via crypto. So whether or not that ends up happening, I don't know. But I see a lot of people that I'm not crazy about, and they're gung-ho about this. And these are tyrants. These are people that want control. And so when they see, the use of stable coins and Tether and all this other stuff, now there may be good uses for it, but these people are not interested in good uses. They're interested in control. And that's where I see a red flag in this whole crypto thing.
And you mentioned control, but just before getting to that, you mentioned the income tax. If there's one thing Trump could do for me, for a lot of people, is do something about that income tax. He mentioned something about, I think, double taxation. I'm an American living here in Mexico. I'm a Mexican citizen, and I've got nothing to do with USA. I've got no presence in America, and yet I pay taxes to the United States. Like, for me, it boggles my mind. Like, I have to, right? I always tell people are shocked when I tell Mexicans and foreigners, I'm like, I could be living on Mars or Antarctica. I will still have to file an IRS report. And so, do you think we'll make at least, you mentioned at least some good things under Trump? Do you see realistically him making an advance against the income tax? I would love to get rid of it and just do like a sales tax.
Oh, I wouldn't say everybody, but I would love it too. When I see all the money I send, I might as well write, instead of U.S. Treasury, write Ukraine or Israel on the check. Why even put the middleman in there if that's what's happening with my money? I don't know if I see Trump making, extraordinary things there, because this is an empire, and he may be, instead of saving America, which is what people say, try to save the American empire. And you having to pay taxes, even though you said all these things, shows that they view themselves as a global government. This is not and it's a very Soviet outlook. And that has unfortunately been with us since the very beginning. What's this new nation of ours? There were some that really were for America first. We're free here. We have, we all live in the same moral understanding. But then there was also the strain of thought that this is going to be the new Rome. And, we can see which one has prevailed up to this point. The new Rome has prevailed over this, Christian nation. That was the other strain of thought. So, that's a new Rome thing, you having to pay taxes to the empire back in D.C. Is Trump going to change that? I would love to see it, but I doubt it.
Yeah, and if Mexico, then if we all become integrated into a North American Union, then I'm back in. Elon Musk, things aren't looking good on the Elon Musk front either. I've seen you retweet some things where he's got this new algorithm rule, which and basically X seems to be morphing it into the social credit system, which a lot of people have, months and years ago said we were going to go down this road. It's not looking good. Do you have any thought on the technocracy? Basically, Musk, X in general, and then in general, I always go back to one of my favorite interviews that I conducted here in June of 2020. Edwin Black, the famed Jewish historian who wrote the book on IBM and the Nazis, and his term algorithm ghetto. They're putting us into this sort of cyber gulag ever so slowly. And so, just thoughts on the technocracy, Musk, social credit.
Yeah, well, again, Musk is a mixed bag too. There's a lot of things that I really like about him. He says a lot of the right things when he was campaigning for Trump, so he knows at least the other side. He's smart enough to know both sides. So, but on the other hand, what he did with that H-1B or HB-1, whichever it is, visa, that was not good, and the way he handled it, and he got pushback. One thing I criticize about Musk, he likes to use that Latin term that the voice of the people is the voice of God. And he likes to, when he gets what he wants, he'll put that in his posts. Well, he didn't put it on the on the visa posts because the people were not into it. So it's an absurd saying anyway. The voice of the people is certainly not the voice of God. The people can be as tyrannical as anything. So it all depends on what the people are supporting at the time. And a lot of times people are supporting what they're told to support. So I don't think he handled that very well. But he has, and the Doge thing is starting to fade away. You don't see it anymore. So I don't. The problem with him is he has his own political positions that affect his businesses. So he's going to want things like these visas for his businesses, and he's not thinking about the other ramifications of it, where he doesn't care. I don't know him, but in any case, he's now conflicting. So when it goes against him, now X is being used against him. So it's a very tough thing. And once you start censoring and demonetizing, taking people's checks away, and all the stuff that he's being accused of, that's a slippery slope. And then the whole free speech thing will be gone. And then people will go to other places. They will go where it is believed free speech is better. I know there's Nostr, which I've been starting to learn about and stuff like that. People will flee if that's the case. I'd hate to see that, because X was great and X helped the president win. But, Elon is a person like everybody else, and he has his own interests. So he's either going to keep the free speech or not. And people will notice if their traffic is down and their subscriptions are down. They will notice, and they will say it, and it will spread. So I just hope he's able to uphold it. As of now, after this visa thing, it's not looking so great. But, I still have hope that he'll, you can't expect him to be perfect. But I hope he doesn't go down that road and then end up like Twitter 1.0, and then that'll be the end of that.
We can all go to blue sky. I'm just kidding. That's that liberal globalist. It's dying anyways. But he terminated the accounts of people questioning his position on the H-1B visa or whatever. And you mentioned COVID, and just real quick, this morning. I'm reading some of the headlines. China, India. It's like they did China last time, and they're doing India now. And even in Kazakhstan, where I used to live, it's saying this new I can't even pronounce it, HMPV virus, people infected, and the whole bird flu is like COVID 2.0. And then now they want mandatory testing for animals, for cows, mandatory PCR testing. It's like they're going to take control of food now. And I am not playing this game again. I'm not putting on any face mask or downloading any app. But I feel like they'd be able to push this through in some way. Again, how do you feel about COVID 2.0? Do you think they're going to do it? Do you think they can?
I think it would be hard, because I have never seen such a turnaround in people's view, especially of the government. I think that even helped Trump, even though he wasn't great in the beginning with COVID. But I've seen people know they were scammed with and whether they outwardly admit it or not, they're not getting these new ones. So they're in their actions showing they know that it's BS. So I think it's a harder sell. However, at the same time, nobody was punished for this. And even now, if you jail Fauci, it's not really, this was such a huge, it was probably the biggest crime in the history of the world because of the scope of it. Of course, there was Nagasaki and Hiroshima and that kind of stuff, but this was a global, they got most of the world to take these things. That's got to be the biggest crime ever in the history of the world. So, and for nobody to just everybody try to sweep this under the rug shows that, well, let's try again from a different angle. And so they're going to keep doing that. And that's why we always see bird flu, Mpox, this, they're throwing, let's see if anything sticks. I don't know if anything would stick. I think people, they're, because with COVID the first time, they caught everybody by surprise. And nobody had any precedent. Everybody trusted doctors and experts, so it was a perfect time. Now nobody's trusting anybody. And that's a hard time, that's a hard environment to go shove this into and succeed. And again, you can't put it past them. They sometimes pull things off. I hope that they can't succeed, because those are 2 or 3 years that we can't get back now. So let's hope it doesn't happen.
Saw a comment on somewhere on social media the other day mentioning how COVID was half a decade ago, and it was, but it feels like yesterday. It's kind of what you said. It was so powerful. A lot of us, I mean, we still have PTSD from living in this dystopia, and it's crazy. Today is January 6th that we're recording, right? Any thought on the whole January? Was the January 6th thing?
Yeah, well, it wasn't an insurrection, obviously. You can't defeat the biggest government in the history of the world with the biggest military and all that with your fists. You're not going to do that. So they ushered everybody out, as you're not going to do that without any weapons. If we want to see how insurrections and coups work, just look what the U.S. does overseas, in Ukraine, in Libya, in Syria. That's how coups work. It's very violent. There's guns, there's tanks, there's new leaders. But because people listen to the media here, we're easily, I would say, the most brainwashed people on earth, because there's such interest in keeping us brainwashed, because they have this global empire. So you got to keep us, of all people, brainwashed. So, and that's why they're still going. They're still comparing this to civil war. Somebody said on The View that Holocaust. I mean, and I guess people are still eating it up. I don't know. Liz Cheney gets a Medal of Freedom. I mean, so it really is a bizarre world, like we started this interview off with, that we live in. And a lot of people live in that bizarre world. They actually live in it and believe it. So that's who lives around us, and we have to function as a society like this. But yeah, it's just another psychological operation that I guess we're still talking about now that it's still January 6th. We'll see how much more they can get out of this thing.
Then, any final thought from you? Any solution? I think, as you say, I would reckon we just need to decentralize, not comply, get away from their systems. Don't give them money, not use their platforms. I like that you seem to be a very glass half full person. That maybe is related to your faith. I see you tweeting about your Catholic faith, and so just any other thoughts, final thoughts for us? Any suggestions on the way forward?
Yeah, yes, I am influenced first and foremost by my faith. So, and as a part of my faith, things don't end up well in the end. The one thing is, we don't know when the end is. So in the meantime, I say you fight for the most short-term victories that you can, because it's the right thing to do. It feels good. Your life has purpose and meaning. And we do have short-term victories, and these short-term victories can outlive us. And you can make a good impression on people, and they can have good lives too. So while in the end, it's not going to end well, or ultimately it'll end well according to my faith. In the end, here on earth, it won't. But in the meantime, you do what's right and live the best that you can, as imperfectly as you are, according to your faith, and you take care of your family, your nation, your friends, your community, and just fight unjust and tyrannical power with your mouth, with your keyboard, as best as you can, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah, when I had on Dr. Paul a couple years back on the podcast, he was saying what we're doing is pamphleteering, and I mean, at his age, that he keeps going, and he's very glass half full. That's inspiring for us. I meet people in my daily life here still where we talk about these things, and I often meet people who are cowardly. They're like, you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. Just live those, I'm like, but how can I not, call a spade a spade? And so
Yeah.
we just, I would agree with you. All your links are in the description. Again, remind us the best places to find you, websites and all that.
Yeah. For our work is ronpaulinstitute.org. And Ron Paul Liberty Report, just look it up. You'll find it anywhere for the show. I'm on X primarily, and I also opened a Nostr account. So anybody that's that far out, but I like to do that. I was on Twitter back when it first started, and people were looking at, what are we going to use this thing for? So it was like 2007 or 2008. So it was very early. So I like that kind of stuff. And I love communicating with people. I'm just like yourself. I can't just keep my mouth shut. I can't live with myself if I did that. So heck with you. Yeah, you're alive, but you're dead inside. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to justly speak what I believe to be true. And whatever happens, I hope it reaches people. I hope what I say is true. I'm definitely not perfect. Some of the things I say could be wrong, inaccurate, but my intention is always to speak the truth. And if it's true, then let it have good ramifications out in the world.
I totally agree, and I'd also recommend people, if they can afford it, if they're able to, become sponsors of the Ron Paul conferences. When you do that, you get to meet with some of the folks beforehand. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So if people can do that for the next conferences coming up this year, do that. And again, follow Chris and the Ron Paul Liberty Report everywhere. And thank you again for the work you do and for coming on the podcast.
Great speaking with you. Thank you.